Happy Friday, Highland Oaks. It's hard to believe that May is halfway over, and most importantly, it is good to know that businesses are beginning to reopen and life is beginning to reopen and return to some sense of normalcy. But there's still so many questions and so many concerns that I have as I think about how we are going to move forward as a church. Questions like, who do you listen to? What data do you actually follow? Concerns with safety, and even some of the studies I've read as far as singing as churches gather again. Singing, of all things, is one of the primary ways the virus could be spread. And then, of course, I'm mindful of your sanity and my sanity and how much we all miss gathering together. Today, I'd like to give you our thought process and a plan for these next several weeks and the upcoming months. But first, I just want to remind you of some very important things. First, our goal is to remain non-anxious. And when I say non-anxious, that's different than appropriate worry or even appropriate concern. But there is no need to be anxious to gather together again. And I think about what we might gain by gathering together. And there are many things that we could gain by seeing one another. But there is so much more that we could lose by taking a risk and jumping in without considering and weighing all of our options. But secondly, we want to continue to be cautious, which is not fearful. We want to proceed with caution. And as we think about returning to some type of assembly here at 10805 Walnut Hill Lane, I'm reminded of a road trip. And do you remember when you take a trip and you come across construction on the interstate? Man, it is so frustrating, isn't it, to come to a complete stop and see what seems like miles and miles of cars in front of you. Now imagine, if you will, that there's no cell phone service and you cannot see the end in sight. And all you can do is stop, and you just inch further and further, and it seems like it's taking forever to get to your destination. And of course, there are these maniacs who fly by on the shoulder trying to cut in front of everyone else. I tell you that story because that is what our situation reminds me of, is we know where we want to get to, some assembly where we gather together again as a church family. But there's construction and there's stopping, and we really can't see how long this is going to go. So this morning, our staff has decided to continue to listen to our local medical professionals. We read the data and try to make ourselves as informed as possible. But not only that, we're in conversation with other churches trying to figure out what they have planned to do. But really, we have the ultimate responsibility to you, our Highland Oaks family. So when we think and consider about when and how to reopen, it is you that we have in mind. So I want to give you three phases, if you will. And the phases are the following. Phase one is stop. Phase two is proceeding with caution. And phase three is a green light, where we are going to go. And I would also like to give you some target dates, which are quite different than firm dates. This is what we would like to see happen. And as you might recall, our first phase is to stop. And this is where we are now and will be for the next few weeks, especially for the rest of this month. When I say stop, that means we are going to continue to stay at home. We're not going to assemble here at the building in any capacity. None of our ministry partners will be meeting here. We want to continue to make sure that our space is sanitary and clean, and we take every precaution necessary to ensure that when that time comes, we can gather in a very safe and appropriate way. And then our target is that in June, we will begin to proceed with caution. Now, when you hear caution, I don't want you to think about the yellow light that you go through before the light turns red. If you're anything like me, that usually means to speed up, to get through the light as quickly as possible. No, think about caution as a blinking school zone where there are people everywhere, and your job and your responsibility is to proceed with caution because there are others around you whose life is at risk. So, in June, we would like to proceed with caution by inviting you to begin to gather in homes with trusted loved ones. And these are very small, intimate gatherings where you can continue to participate in our virtual worship experiences. There's going to be opportunities in June here at the building in the parking lot. And our team is working hard to creatively imagine ways that we can gather safely in open spaces so that we can begin to see one another again. But we are going to continue to proceed with caution as long as caution is necessary, because we believe with full confidence that is the loving thing to do. And then finally, hopefully our target is in July. We'll begin to have a green light. But much like the construction story I told you before, we can't just automatically go and return to full speed, but it's a gradual picking up of speed, and there will be a gradual return. And we don't even know what this will look like fully, but we can assure you that we are going to be thoughtfully and proactively prepared for whatever comes our way. So once again, the phases are stop, proceed with caution, and go. Finally, we are very interested to see what our public school systems decide to do. That will be a major cue for us as far as returning to some sense of normalcy as the school year either starts or continues to be delayed. I know that there are all kinds of fears and concerns that you share. Even when I go to the store, it's so interesting to see even how anxious I get underneath my mask or watching other people who don't have masks on. And I just want to encourage you to remember just a few things. First of all, we must continue to rely on one another. Secondly, you must continue to communicate, not only with each other, but also with us. Continue to send us your prayer needs and your concerns, and we will, if at all possible, respond to your needs as much as we can. But I also want to remind you to resist the need to compare what we are doing with what other churches may be doing or what other states are doing, because our responsibility is to you here in Dallas County at the Highland Oaks Church, and that may look completely different than it may look the next county over, and certainly in other states. Would you please continue to pray for us and pray for our discernment, and that you would continue to be supportive in all the wonderful ways that you have been already? We love you, church family. We long to see you again. But I hope this brings you some great assurance as we look forward to continuing to meet in homes, but hopefully in June, proceeding with caution, and then finally in July, beginning to slowly gather together again. May God be with us all. Thank you.